there, friends. I'm Victoria from the Academy of Conscious Creators, and I want to welcome you to the Academy's first virtual Freedom Summit, featuring inspiring stories of greatness, wisdom, and empowerment. So let's jump in. Until you know yourself, you won't be able to stand tall in the world with loving masculine presence, or glow in your sensuous aliveness, confidence, and feminine playfulness. You'll feel like something is missing, and you'll look to other people, especially partners, for validation and fulfillment. Yet the only way to have total fulfillment is to take a profound journey of self-discovery and inner union of your masculine and feminine. A process of realizing and understanding that you alone are responsible for your stability and fulfillment in life. And so, to share more about the masculine and feminine dance and the relevance that this has in the world today is my guest, Ashara Gorbet. Ashara is devoted to supporting women to reclaim and re-anchor the divine feminine within the planet through feminine practices and feminine alchemical dance. With a background in the art of feminine presence, she is the founder of Feminine Dance Academy and the creatrix of Feminine Radiance Circles and Feminine Dance Alchemy. And through a personal journey of healing and rebalancing her own masculine and feminine energies, she now offers experiences to other women in self-transformation that are attuned to the vibration of this new earth. Ashara, welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here and a little nervous because this is new for me. So.
Yeah, wow, it's my delight to have you here. And I'm really excited about this conversation because it's a topic I've kind of been exploring the last couple of years myself and doing my own inner work. And there's, I'm sure, so much more that I could learn and that would really be fascinating for people to hear today. So we'll just start by, I understand that your work is predominantly supporting women, but I'm curious why specifically reclaiming the feminine essence is so essential right now, and how this supports us to evolve with the new earth vibration.
Well, I mean, I think we all can relate to, we've all been living in a very patriarchal society for many thousands of years, and it's been kind of toxic. And at this juncture of our evolution into the ascension process, where we are moving into a new earth energy, reclaiming and re-anchoring those feminine energies is vital. This is what was meant when the Dalai Lama in 2009 said, the world will be saved by the Western woman. This was a prophecy. And in my experience of holding many circles with women from all cultures, my take on that is the world will be saved by all women.
Right.
Not just the Western women, right? And so the feminine energies are the energies that, as womb carriers, we are the creators of worlds. And we carry the key energies to open up into that creation and bring in the energies of the Great Mother again, which is the compassionate, nurturing energies. And it's vital to do that because men are kind of, the masculine aspects and men, they're kind of a little bit, they're still very caught up. A lot of them are very caught up in that patriarchy. And it's always been I think the role of the feminine and the woman to open up things spiritually and emotionally first. So men can move into that place, right? And feel good about moving into that place. So it's kind of up to us to do that, like women to do that first, so that men can step into that and feel good about stepping into it with us.
Yeah, it's creating that kind of safe space, I guess, for that vulnerability to show up, which, of course, as you were saying, in this patriarchal world we've been living in, there is no room for being vulnerable. Um, so let's explore a little bit, just so that our audience can understand a bit more about masculine and feminine energies, because it lives, regardless of gender, it lives within each of us. So do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, I can refer a little bit to my own journey, if that's
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, please.
because it will help to sort of weave in. Yeah. So I don't know how it happened, because I came from a very stable, loving, supportive home, but somehow I activated a very toxic masculine and feminine very early in my life, like prepubescent. I don't know how it happened, but it did. And I went through life with this very toxicity and this imbalance, which at one point, in my life, it got so bad that it was destroying me, and I knew I had to do something about it. And that's how I started to work with it in myself, and eventually started to reach out to other women on these journeys. So it's really about learning. It's really a dance.
Yes.
That's what I like to say. It's a dance. So a lot of it has to do with receptivity, and the receptivity energies and the giving energies. So how they weave together.
Mm.
And when I used to give these intros, where I would get women into my circles, and I would ask the question: Is giving masculine or feminine? And 90% of the women would say it's feminine.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we've been led to believe, that we have to give and give and give and give and give and give. And I mean, that's true to us in a sense when we have children, but in general, what happens to women is if they give too much and overgive, they get burnt out.
Yes.
Right? That adrenalized energy. So then I would say to them, well, okay, just think about, how sex works. And it could be like heterosexual sex, homosexual, how does it work? It's, one gives, one receives. And it's generally the masculine that gives. If you think about the energy of the masculine is outward, active energy, right? And it's electrical. So electrical energy goes everywhere and creates all kinds of stuff, right? And the feminine is magnetic and receiving, receptive, right? So, and then when we go on to do practices with the receptive energy and the giving energy, they would feel very uncomfortable, because I do everything somatically in the body, and they would feel very uncomfortable with that receptive energy, and they would be interpreting it as taking instead of receiving.
Mm.
So leaving the other person depleted, right? So there had to be a shift there. And so when you get into the receptive energies, what happens is you start to feel into your magnetism and your ability to take in the world and fuel yourself. So what happens with the masculine and feminine is that the dance, this is the dance. The woman needs to be filled up. The feminine needs to be filled up before she gives.
Yes.
Right? And the masculine needs to give before he can receive.
Right.
Because then he feels like he's done his job, right?
Right.
Sorry?
I was going to say, and she needs something to be able to give. If she hasn't, if she's not full, then how has she got enough to give?
Yeah. So the principled energies are masculine giving, feminine receiving, right? But then there's a dance where they both give and receive. But if you don't know what your principal energy is, and you're starting from that place of the one that's not yours, then you're going to get burnt out. And it's hormonal too, because what happens with the giving masculine, it's very adrenalized, right? There's a lot of adrenaline and testosterone in that. And for women, that feels great to start with. But we get burnt out very fast if we keep on going on empty, right? And we need that hormonal oxytocin fix, estrogen oxytocin fix to be able to then give from that. So that's a big part of the balance of masculine and feminine energies.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing a bit more insight into that. That was really helpful. And you obviously referred to it as the dance of this energies of the masculine and feminine, and of course you're a dancer. So would you like to share a little bit about, your quest, your personal quest for freedom, and how that sent you on your journey towards dance, and also the purpose work that you offer today?
Sure. Well, I'll try and make it short. It's a very windy journey. Uh, so, so what?
I was going to say another.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is. It is definitely, and I kind of call it my flight to freedom. What happened with my dance thing? So, I grew up in a very stable home, and there was, but there was a kind of a very subtle overprotectiveness and a kind of subtle expectation around how my life should go. Right? No pressure, but a kind of expectation there. And I must have felt it really strongly growing up because I felt very confined. Right. So I went through a series of things. I had this big aha when I was out west at the Banff School of Fine Arts when I was still at university. And I was doing life drawing out there, kind of following in the family tradition to become an artist. And it was a school of fine arts, so all the arts were there. And there was dance was there, right? And there was this big studio and a window where you could watch the dancers, you could watch the classes and the rehearsals. And I had to pass it to go in and out of the building. And I remember after classes, I would be covered in charcoal and graphite and everything from the class. And I would be looking at these beautiful creatures doing these things. And one day I just started really looking, like watching for a long time. I was very compelled by it. And I had this aha moment. I do not want to make myself messy and dirty and ugly in order to create something outside of myself that's beautiful. I want to be the art. And that was my big aha moment for dance.
Yeah.
And then 2 years, yeah. And then 2 years on from that, I ended up in London, England. And that was my flight to freedom. So I had to get like 3,000 miles away from not just my family, but Canada, which is a society of conformity. Like you don't feel accepted unless you conform there, into a society in the UK which values eccentricity. Suddenly I felt, oh, I can just be myself here and everybody will accept me, no matter how crazy I am.
Yeah.
And that's when my dance journey started. I started training, and that's how I got into it, just by moving away, and also just knowing that somehow I had to break out of this confinement, which was a very subtle thing, but it was still not allowing myself, it was not allowing my authenticity to come forward.
Right. Right. And you mentioned earlier about, recognizing within yourself that you had this toxicity going on with your own inner masculine and feminine. So do you think that with this move that started to reveal itself through the dance as well? Like tell us how that came about.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. No, it didn't reveal itself through the dance, but by moving over there, it was more personal. I had a series of, like, my personal life was really getting bad, and I was attracting all kinds of men who were not good for me. And it got to the point where it was so bad that it was destroying me, really destroying my life. And I got to the point of like contemplating suicide at that stage. Like, I didn't have a big like near death experience or Kundalini awakening. I had a very real, well, not that isn't real, but I had a very 3D old paradigm experience that plunged me into a really dark place that put me onto my spiritual journey, which had to do with the masculine and feminine. And clearing up that toxicity and healing that toxicity and balancing that toxicity. It was a very long journey. So even though it was kind of, it didn't come out of the dance, but eventually what happened was I wove those two things together to create what I'm creating now. So somehow it was meant, I don't know, it was meant to be. I was meant to be doing all that dance stuff, to have my dance career, and while I was doing that, I was going through this whole thing of healing all of that and bringing in a whole bunch of mystical stuff, occult stuff and mystical stuff in it. And those three threads eventually wove together, spun together into what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it. And we're going to explore that in a bit more detail. And I mean, it sounds like you went through what's sort of known as the dark night of the soul. And through that darkness, you started to piece parts of yourself together, which obviously then set you on your spiritual path and journey for what you now do and for other women. And yeah, what I was hearing is, hang on just one moment. Yeah, what I was hearing was, part of the turmoil that was going on inside was sort of being reflected to you in your external world. And so when you started to rebalance within, what did you notice how that transformed your outer the world? And like perhaps what was your biggest insight on your personal journey?
Mm. Oh, that's a big question. It's only really happened that I would say that's only really come together recently for me. It's been a really long journey, really long journey. And there have been so many other aspects of it. I don't know, I call my life, this lifetime, this incarnation for me, I call it a culmination lifetime because it feels like everything's come together in this life, in this incarnation, from all my other
Yeah.
incarnations and everything else to just confront me in this particular life. And it's really only been in the last, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 years that I've actually started to bring everything together and feel like I have some insight. Because before that, I was just like, it felt like I was like struggling in the dark a lot. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's just recently that I've had, and I think also externally, the energies are shifted on the earth and cosmologically. So everybody's coming to this place of awakening at whatever place they're at. So for me, it's just, it's come together fairly recently, but I'm starting to feel very, I don't know what the word is, at peace
Mm-hmm.
and calm and feeling very like, okay, now I can come out of hiding.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been hiding. I know a lot of women have this,
Yeah.
feeling like we've been hiding. Yeah. And I for sure have been feeling that. It's only recently that I've decided, okay, you know what? Let's feel the fear and do it anyway.
I hear you. And yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to a lot of the things that you were saying. And it feels like you say, we've maybe been incarnated through many lifetimes preparing us for this big shift that we're currently, witnessing. And I mean, what an honor in a way, even though it's messy and uncomfortable and chaotic, we are literally birthing the new world as she emerges as this new state. And maybe this is why it's feeling more safe for women to feel like we can come out and show ourselves because of those supportive energies that we're all.
something just come up when, as you said that. I think it's not just about coming out, but it's being able to come out in a feminine way.
Right. Yeah,
Because I think in the past, in order to come out, women have had to step very strongly into the masculine energy in order to show themselves, be accepted, all of that kind of stuff. But to step out in the feminine,
yeah,
that's a whole different thing. And I think that that's what's happening now. We're wow, we can actually show ourselves as our sensual, beautiful, feminine selves and just come out into the world as that and not have to worry about being slapped down or not accepted or whatever.
that is such a great point, and I'm so glad that you tapped into that, because that's exactly what it is, and maybe that was why it hasn't felt safe, because it's felt unnatural in the old way, that we felt the only way we could show up was in this kind of pushing and fighting, or aggressive, strong energy. And actually this more soft and nurturing energy is, powerful, but in a different sense of power. It's not power over,
Wow,
being in your.
that's right. And also, it's very subtle. So, I've had women in my circles. I can think of an instance of one woman who was working in a very masculine environment. And she was the only woman on the management level, and they were all men. And she would be at a boardroom meeting with them, and she couldn't get their attention. They didn't take her seriously, all that kind of stuff. And when we started to do womb-based work, which is part of what I do, and she started to learn practices, which are very subtle practices that you don't, no one else knows you're doing them. She would use those practices in the boardroom, and all of a sudden, all the men were paying attention. Everything shifted. Yeah. So the feminine way is very subtle. It's very somatic. It's very in the body. And this is something that my work, and this is where the dance stuff comes in a lot, because it's not dance as such, but it's being in the body. Like, you know how to be in the body when you're a dancer. So it's being in the body, because our bodies as women are our temples of creation, right? And if you can feel your body, and a lot of women can't feel into their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been so conditioned into being in the head.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for a lot of women to be in the body, right? So a lot of my work centers around just getting you into the body and getting into that feminine energy that is mulching around in the body all the time, like it's just flowing in the body all the time, and tapping into that. Right? And that is where our power is, our creative power is, as women, the feminine creative power in your body. It's in your body. It's not something floating up here.
No. So yeah, let's delve a bit deeper into that, into these feminine radiance circles and the feminine alchemy. And how that not only just supports women as individuals, but in what we were talking about, and how we can bring that presence and start really showing up in the world, and living and enjoying our life, rather than just being that wallflower.
Sure. Well, the radiant circles, what I call the feminine radiant circles, and that's just my name for them. So it's what we do is we work with the feminine energy flows in the body. We work with the womb energies and the heart energies, and it's really hard to put into words. It's very visceral in the body. And when you start to connect with the womb and you start to connect with those energies, you start to feel your feminine energy, right? And you start to get very connected into what that is in a very palpable sense. as opposed to just, oh, let's talk about it, or let's do something external with it. It's very, very in the body, right? You get that. And it's not that difficult. Like, most women all women can do this, right? And most women, it's not that difficult. It sounds like, oh, it might be something really strange, but in actual fact, it's very easy for women. I'll have women for the first time in my circles, and they'll be able to get into that womb space quite easily, much more easily than they thought they would, right? And it shows up in my circles. It shows up. We do this witnessed exercise or practice where, when a woman is doing this practice, you can, after about 5 minutes, you can see her feminine essence just coming out of her.
Wow.
So it's quite extraordinary. It's like magic. It's just extraordinary. And then you reflect that back to her, right? Because part of the issue that we've had in the patriarchy is that we don't often get the appreciation. And women, I find that men, they like to be appreciated for what they do. Women like to be appreciated for who they are.
Yeah.
Just your essence, right? And so we reflect that back to them. And it's always beautiful. It's always beautiful. It's different for every woman, but it's always beautiful. Right. So we cycle through a lot of different practices in the radiance circles. And then if you want to go on, we take those practices and we start to cycle them into movement, more movement. And what I work, feminine dance alchemy, is about taking movement, and movement is the quintessential element of life. Nobody ever really talks about this.
No.
Right? People talk, but no, you don't ever hear it, right? You don't even hear anything about movement, right? Because it's so quintessential that we take it for granted, right? So, but if you think about it, what is a vibration? If you look in the dictionary, a vibration is a rapid movement back and forth. It's a movement. There is movement in everything. So I do a practice called movement in stillness, right? Because stillness is actually an illusion, right? When we're still, we've just voluntarily stopped engaging with the space. But if you go inside, everything is still moving. Everything is still moving, right? If it stopped moving, you would be dead.
Right. And as you were saying that, even as I'm sitting still listening to you, I can still feel, little vibrations around my shoulders and, movement in the body, in the cells, I guess.
That's right. That's right. In the cells. What about your heart? What about your breathing? What about your digestion? Everything is always moving. So we go from this place in feminine dance alchemy from movement. The premise is movement is a quintessential element of life, right? And it belongs to all of us, right? We can all move, and dance is something that's natural. What do toddlers do when they hear music, right? They start to wiggle around, right? And they do it with their hips, like they know where the juice is, right?
Yeah.
Right? And they're wiggling and bouncing and moving their hips, right? So everyone can do this. But what this is about is getting in touch, not getting in touch. It's about really finding the movements in a really deep part of your cells, right? So everybody has an individual signature in there of movement. And most people never find it, because the way we dance is we either copy, we mimic, right? So if you're going into a dance class, you're copying. Trust me, I did this for years. I was a dance teacher for like 20 odd years. And I get up in front of class and everybody be following me. Everyone be following me. So it's about mimicry, or it's about habit, right? Like you get up and you're moving from one or two movement modalities that you always move from, right? And you're not really getting down into a deeper part of your cells where movement is a quintessential element of life, and where you have a special way of moving that is actually coming from a deeper part, right? So the process that we go through, the alchemy that we go through, is finding that, right? And using natural movement, not using dance movements, but using natural movement to explore that and excavate your individual expression, your individual dance expression. And it's for everyone. Like this is not for a dancer. In fact, professional dancers would have to shed a lot of overlay to get to this. You have to come to it with a pretty clean canvas to be able to get. So, lovers of dance can do it, and professional dancers can do it if they're willing to shed all of that stuff and come in completely new and clean and clear.
Yeah. And it's from within and expressing without. It's an inner to outward dance is what I'm sensing. Haven't explored this myself as yet.
Yeah.
Great detail.
It is an inner to outer, but there's more to it. So this is where the dance lineage and the foundation comes into it. So it's a it's actually based on choreography. So I'm a trained choreographer. It's based on choreography, but you become your own choreographer. So it's based more on choreography than it is on technique or moves or any of those kinds of things that you've seen externally.
Okay.
Right. And it's going deep. And the closest thing that I've ever seen to this is when you see real tantric dance, which is very rare.
Right. No, I've not seen that.
Yeah, it's hard to find the real stuff. It's hard to find. Yeah.
So just off the back of that then, I'm curious, the inner work that we do through movement and dance and really embodying this feminine essence, how does that support our third dimensional relationships? It also feels like the dance between the masculine and feminine, regardless of gender, but that dance is also shifting. So how will that shift with this new earth, and what will new earth relationships emerge from this?
I'm not sure. I know it's going to be something juicy, but I'm not sure what it is. The work that I do, I think, is it's transformational and creational, right? So there's something that we go through when we're using the feminine energies from the radiance circles and cycling them into the dance and the movement of dance. Our bodies have memories, our muscles have memory, right? Our cells have memory. So once you feed the cell with something, it remembers it. Once you feed the muscle, it remembers it, right? So there's something that we do in feminine dance alchemy. I call it feeling fluidity as ecstasy.
Nice.
So we're working with energy flows, and it feels ecstatic. It feels really good. And what that does is it shifts how we feel about change. Right. So in the old paradigm, change is something that we resist.
Right.
We're scared of. We feel threatened, right? We don't, like, as soon as change comes, we don't we go like this, right? But if you start feeling change as an ecstasy in your body, right? You start to want it, not just accept it, not just, okay, I'm going to accept this, or I'm going to embrace it. But, oh, wow, I really like this. I want to go with this, right? I want to go with this change, right? And it starts to feel like joyful to move into change, right? So how that's going to affect, I think that's going to affect everything.
Yeah.
And not just relationships. I think it's going to affect everything, because the reason why is because change and movement is what source does.
Well, I mean,
Constant creation,
yeah, and
right?
even when we're in resistance of it, it's still happening. You know, we can't stop it. We just have to learn how to respond to it better. And the image that I was given when she was speaking was, you know, just flowing down that river and just like, yay, you know, rather than trying to fight against the current, which just wears you down and it's exhausting and you probably get taken anyway, you know, you lose your grip eventually.
Exactly, yeah. And taking the water element into it further, it's kind of, I always think of this as a wave. I mean, that's kind of a common metaphor, but it's almost like if you think of the ocean, the feminine energies go out into the ocean, into the primordial waters, and get information, right? And then they come, and the masculine energies take the wave onto the shore, and they make a pattern on the shore, right? And every pattern they make is a different pattern.
Nice.
So as we go through the alchemy with this movement, as we go through the alchemy, we go in and we ask, how shall I move? Right? And then we go out and we move as long as it doesn't become inauthentic. You can feel when that's going to start. As soon as you feel when that starts, you go back in again into the water, into the ocean, the primordial waters, and you ask and you come out. So it's kind of like that's the kind of motion that we do with it.
Okay. Nice.
Again, it's like it's a dance, yeah. And everyone is going to have a different pattern on the shore. Right?
Yeah.
And when I do my work, when I do my workshops, I do not move myself.
Okay.
Because as soon as I move, you're going to copy me.
Right.
You're going to get ideas from me, you know, and so I want people to be. I just guide, right? So I just guide.
Yeah, and let them draw it out of themselves. And you know, I was thinking as from the intro that I offered at the beginning of our conversation was about, you know, meeting our own inner stability and fulfillment. And that, from what you just described, it's like, you know, using the feminine essence of ourselves to go into the ideas and the inspiration and get that creative insight. And then we you know, we dance with the masculine energy to put it into action and you know, make it visible in the world and create it. So we're going into the darkness for the ideas and the inspiration, and then we're bringing that out into the light. And is that how you might describe it, or have I?
Yeah, it's a good description, Victoria. But as you were talking, you know, the other thing that was coming to me is there is a masculine aspect to this as well, in which we explore movement modalities.
Okay.
Right. So there's a whole array of movement modalities, which people I mean, I think everyone does them, but they're not aware of them. They're not conscious of them, or they don't use them, or whatever. And so we go into a whole array of movement modalities. So you have like a banquet, a buffet of movement modalities that you will explore and introduce into your muscles and your cells, your body. So, for example, most people move in one or two modalities, right? And that's just habitual. Somehow they've just got into that through their lives. What if I introduce to you a modality that's completely the opposite of the way you move? Right? So maybe you move like this, right? And then I say, okay, we're going to move like this now. It's going to feel really unnatural.
Yeah.
But you get to experiment with it and add it to your buffet.
Right.
So then you have, by the time you're finished, you've got like all these other modalities to work with in your body. Your body will remember them. And when you go into those primordial waters and you come out again, somehow they're going to be in the mix.
Mm.
And you're going to have your creational abilities, your creational capacity is going to just widen and broaden and deepen and be amplified.
I can really sense that. And what was coming through is when you were saying earlier about, the current dynamic is that we're fearful of change, we don't like it, feels unsettling. If we can get into that space of being comfortable in this unknown space, then actually we have the potential to keep creating for ourselves a life that we've not lived before. Whereas when we're in that sticky, stuck energy of, oh, I don't want to shift, so I'm just going to stay here, it's very limiting on what, our potential is and what experiences we have to invite into our lives if we don't open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a beautiful way of putting it. Because if if everything is about getting accustomed to new things, right? And getting them flowing through the body. And that's where you start. What happens a lot in what we've been used to is everything starts up here.
Yes.
Right. And that's when we get stuck. But if everything starts in here, particularly for women, because this is our creation, right? This is where we create from. If we start from here, it's all going to flow out into your life.
Yes.
And especially with womb-based work, because the womb, and when I say womb-based work, we talk about womb space. We don't talk about womb in the work I do, because some women don't have their wombs anymore, right? But if you were born with a womb, you have the energetic imprint of the womb.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter whether you actually had a physical womb or not, right? So I want to make that clear, because this is, absolutely for all women, right? But because the womb is our vessel of creation, or part of our vessel of creation, it's where we grow things, right? It's a space where we grow things. It is where our place of power is.
Right.
So with all of these practices, and then flowing them in the movement and flowing them in the energy flows, I work a lot with feminine energy flows in the body, right? So for example, a lot of people, when they move in, they don't register it, but they're moving in a very masculine way. So you could be like doing really flowy movements, but you could be still moving in a masculine way. Why? Because you're moving outward.
Right.
You're moving outward. And it could look very feminine. It could look very, whatever, but you're moving outward, right?
Okay.
This is about tapping into the energy that's in first before you move out. So that's part of the feminine flow, is we're going with those feminine energies, because everything, all of our creation is internal. You need to tap into that internal place before you outflow. Otherwise, it's not powerful, and it dissipates very fast. When you drop into your womb space, it's going to be different every time you drop in there. Right. So don't expect it to be the same. It's going to be different every day. So when people do womb practices and they say you're going to go in there and you're going to feel water, not always, right? Like I've had a lot of women come say, it feels really dark in there today. It feels really dense and dark in there, or it feels fiery, or, it can be anything. And it changes from moment to moment. So that's part of the fluidity and the change, right?
Yeah.
And getting used to that. Yeah.
Great. So, and people can find out more and get started because you've kindly come with an amazing free gift today, haven't you, Ashara? Would you like to share a little bit about what you're offering?
Sure. Yeah. So I would love to offer the women who are listening to this summit a free session. And that will be, I'm not sure how long it's going to be. When we get going, I could say it's an hour and a half, maybe, or 2 hours. But when we get going, we're kind of in a feminine, what I call the feminine flow. So, it could be any time after about an hour and a half, longer than that. And yes, and I will be guiding you into these places just like an introduction to it. And we'll be doing a demonstration of how that can affect your communication.
Right.
So all of the practices that we do in feminine radiance circles are practical. So remember I was talking about the woman who was using the practices and she affected what was going on around her.
Mm-hmm.
This is what this is about. So there'll be a demonstration of how that actually plays out and how you can use it in your life.
I love
because all of these practices, all these practices are, for to be used in your life, and you can shift the dynamic of any situation or any interaction with this practice.
Yeah,
so you can calm down animals, you can calm down children, you can shift if you're like in an argument with someone, you can shift that really quickly by doing the practices.
Yeah, and what straight away came through when you said the word communication was, when we're in that presence, we are going to be much more communicative and able to have a flow of communication with friends, colleagues, partners, because we're coming from embodiment, not from this thinking mind where we're just, batting thoughts at each other. We're really, in the body. And this connection as well to, Mother Earth and the planet, and our experience of life will be so much more rich, I feel, and because we are connected to all living things. That's the sense that I really got from that.
Yeah, and also remember that you're when you start flowing and you start feeling that fluidity in life, you are attuning to source energy.
Yeah.
Because source energy is a constant flow. It's constantly fluid. Even in something, an inanimate object, if you look into it with a lot of magnification, there's movement in it. On an atomic level, right? Everything has got that flow. Everything's got that fluidity. So you're tapping into, and by doing it in a creational way instead of a remedial way, right, or a therapeutic way, if you're doing it in a creational way, that's really tuning into source, because source is constant. It's just constantly creating. It's constant creation.
Yes.
So it's not just you're attuning to the earth, you're attuning to each other, and you're attuning to the cosmos.
The cosmic dance.
A cosmic dance.
Amazing. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our time together. Is there anything else that you would like to share or offer before we close the conversation?
I don't think so. Do you want to say anything more about the timing of the offer?
Oh, I'll put all the details. They'll be able to see the link.
Okay, great. Perfect.
Yeah, and sign up for that. So yeah, do sign up. I think it'll be an amazing experience for as many women to really start to feel more connected to our life. I know that a lot of us have been feeling quite disconnected, so this is a real opportunity to reconnect with ourselves and all of nature.
Yeah, and it's my honor to be offering this. It's been such a journey for me, and to share it is it's just exciting and exhilarating and a huge privilege. So thank you so much for the opportunity, Victoria.
Thank you for your generosity and for
Pleasure.
being here with me today. I've really enjoyed it, and like you said, we could probably talk for a few more hours on this topic because it is really, really so fascinating. So thank you very much for being here.
Thanks.
All right, so I've been speaking with Ashara Gorbet, and she's a dancer and professional life coach, supporting women to unlock the power of movement and dance for their personal evolution and creational flow. And if you're looking for a platform where you can access support on your journey to personal freedom, come join us. I hope you'll explore, have fun, and connect with others. And you can find out more at wearetac.com. That's weartacc.com, the Academy of Conscious Creators, empowering you to create a new story of your life. Thank you.